I'm Sam from Cultaholic.com, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit a grade from A+ to F. Now it's Chamber weekend. Are you excited? Because I know I am. Boy, it feels like ages since we last had a pay-per-view, doesn't it? So tonight's probably gonna do a lot of setup. We have that massive beefy gauntlet match, and it takes quite a while to get through. So without any further ado, let's crack on with it. Hit the intro. So we kick off this week's SmackDown with a moment of bliss, and this week's episode opens with, weirdly enough, Alexa and Nikki sort of hinting that they want a shot at the tag titles. They're sort of saying to the Kabuki Warriors they're supposed to be defended across all brands, come on guys, and then they welcome out their guests, and this week's guests are the NWO, but no Hogan. So it's Hall, Nash and X-Pac. They get in the ring and Nikki immediately wants a selfie. She runs down the accolades and she brings up Goldberg versus Reigns at WrestleMania. Scott Hall immediately bursts out laughing at the very mention of Goldberg, but Kevin Nash has some advice for Roman. He said that Roman called him, and to be honest, the only way you can really beat Goldberg is with Scott Hall and a cattle prod. Those are the two things you need. There's then a bit of an awkward pause where it looks like somebody was supposed to say something but didn't, and then they're cut off by Nakamura's music. Out comes Nakamura, Zayn, and Cesaro. Sami tells them that they're living in the past. He hypes the upcoming 3-on-1 match at Elimination Chamber, and then he looks at Scott Hall and he says, Scott Hall, you are one of the greatest IC champions of all time. He looks at Diesel and he's like, mate, you had a sterling run with the IC belt. And then he looks at Waltman and he just says to him, I mean, well, you weren't really an IC champ, but I guess that you know how heavy the belt weighs, given that you used to carry their bags all the time. So they square up, and Sami says, you know, I'm not giving you the rub. None of us are going to give you the rub. We are focused very much on a match against Braun Strowman. And when they mention Braun, out he comes. He comes charging down the ramp, knocks out Cesaro, he knocks out Nakamura, and he sends Sami crawling into the ring to escape, but he just comes to the feet of the NWO. Sami then uses Alexa as a human shield in order to escape. As he's halfway up the ramp, Braun starts launching furniture at him, and then Braun gets in the obligatory too sweet, because you have to have a too sweet every single time there's a single member of the NWO or Clique anywhere, but he gets that in, and that's the end of the segment. This gets a C+. It felt very disjointed in places. The Sami line about carrying the bags was great. Hall bursting out laughing about Goldberg was great, if not probably what he really thinks of Goldberg. I don't know. But it did just feel like they'd hurried those guys out there with little to no prep, so yeah. We then go to the first match of the night, which is Lacey and Naomi versus Sasha and Bayley. So Lacey and Sasha start off with Bayley jumping into double team. There's then a little bit of back and forth on the outside with Naomi getting involved, but Sasha manages to plant her into the barricade, and that's that. We go to break. When we come back, as Bayley's working over Lacey in the middle of the ring, we get another glitch, but then Naomi comes in and she just starts taking it straight to the heels. She manages to hit a corkscrew plancher to the outside and even almost gets a pin until Bayley intervenes. As things progress, there's a little bit of a beatdown. Lacey is back on her feet. She comes in to intervene, but then when Naomi gets into position to do the split-legged moonsault, Bayley is like on the outside. I think she like pulls her forward and that sends her off balance, and then I think Sasha knocks her, so she goes headfirst into the post, or at least it looked like she connected with the ring post, and then Sasha just does this cheeky quick roll-up and picks up the win. This one ended abruptly with Naomi being caught off guard, and I'm gonna give it a C. I don't think you can say that she's being buried or that it was too squashy. It did have a bit of back and forth in it. There's only so much more of this we're gonna really be able to take. Naomi returned at the Rumble, and it was just huge. Like, I was really expecting this to be the potential Mania match, but as the weeks go on, it just seems increasingly less and less likely, and that's making me quite sad. We then go backstage to the New Day, who are being interviewed. Kofi's asked about Kofi Mania last year, which of course began at the Chamber. He's like, it's not important to look in the past, you gotta focus on the future. Big E then confirms that the New Day have the stamina of a moose during mating season. They can go all night, so I guess New Day rocks. There's then a really weird, quick cutback during the opening of the next match, so I'm just going to say it now. I'm not going to put an image up because it was so quick. It's just Sasha and Bayley backstage. They're just kind of bragging about wiping everybody out. They mention how it's a disgrace the Bellas are going to the Hall of Fame and all of that. But this happens during Sheamus' entrance, I believe, for the next match, which is Sheamus versus Apollo Crews. So once Sheamus is in the ring, we cut backstage to the curtain, the little curtain area in Gorilla, and Shorty G turns up, and obviously him and Cruz had a bit of a tiff where it was like, you just watch your stuff, I'll watch mine, I don't need any help. Shorty G's like, look mate, I'm here to help you. I know you said you didn't need any help, but just say the word anytime. Just say the word and I will be more than happy to help. So this match starts a lot like Sheamus' most recent matches. Cruz really tries to keep the pace on to keep Sheamus on the back foot, but Sheamus very quickly overpowers him. Eventually, Sheamus just starts laying in some strikes and connects with the bro kick and picks up the win. This gets a C-. I'm very aware that Sheamus' whole character right now is playground bully, but there is only so much he's short that I can take. It's very flat. I don't quite understand why he's got such a problem with short people. They're rats, apparently, but I don't know. Like, it's just... I think it needs a little bit more depth before I'm prepared to really jump in with both feet on this feud. We then go backstage to Drew Gulak, and he's approached by my boy, Drake Maverick. And Maverick's like, look, I know what you've been doing the last couple of weeks. I want to wrestle Daniel Bryan. And I was just like, yes, 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 make this a match. Gulak, however, is like, you. Like, no, man, come on. Like, Bryan has a lot of weaknesses, but I don't think you're going to be able to put up with the onslaught that he's actually able to bring. He starts to run down some of Bryan's weaknesses, but Bryan then very quickly appears. Bryan tells Gulak, you know, if you're so sure of my weaknesses, if you think you can exploit my weaknesses to beat me and make me look like a fool, then I'm going to be in the area on Sunday, so why don't we just make it official? Let's just do it at Elimination Chamber. So new match confirmed for the Chamber. It's not going to be a Chamber match, but, you know, it's at Chamber. Our next match is Carmella and Dana versus Fire and Desire. And as Fire and Desire are making their entrance, Sonya just does this. She like motions to somebody to come out from the back, and it's that twat, that absolute bell sniff, Dolph Ziggler. So that knob end is going to be at ringside throughout the entire match, and I guess I'm just going to have to lump it. Mandy and Mella start this off fairly quickly, with Mella getting isolated very quickly. Mandy and Sonya are tagging routinely. They're just really applying the pressure to her. It's also revealed here that Sonya was the one that asked Dolph to come to ringside tonight, not Mandy. Carmella does eventually get on the front foot, though. She's able to put enough distance between her and those dastardly heels to get the hot tag to Dana. The only problem here is that Dolph immediately distracts Brooke once she gets into the ring. This allows Mandy to get a sneaky tag on Sonya that Dana didn't see. Dana's then too busy focusing on Sonya. Mandy hits a running knee and picks up the win. This one gets a C+. It's like not a squash. It's one of those matches where it's there to further a storyline. The match itself is sort of inconsequential. It was a very good chance, though, to do this, to add that extra element to this ongoing storyline between Otis and Dolph and Mandy, and I think that it worked really well. Next up is Firefly Funhouse, and when it starts, Bray is hanging up pictures of John Cena, defaced pictures of John Cena on his wall. So he says the question on everybody's lips is why John Cena? Why John Cena at WrestleMania? And then Rambler Rabbit appears and recaps Bray's crippling loss to Cena at WrestleMania 30. Now, many fans in the real world actually mark this loss to Cena at WrestleMania 30 as the moment where Bray was never quite the same again. Bray, after this, goes on a bit of a downward spiral in terms of his place on the card, and he's never going to get back to the top until really, you know, there's moments, but it's not quite ever the same until he comes back as Firefly Bray, which is, you know, he's been the hottest he's ever been right now. Rabbit disappears, though, and Bray says that time can either hurt you or heal you, and time works in a circle. If it wasn't for John Cena, the Firefly Funhouse wouldn't exist. He thanks him and forgives him, but he says that Cena also, by accident, helped create something else, something that won't thank him and won't forgive him. He once again says that life is a circle and the dark side always comes back around. This gets an A. I feel like a broken record every single week when I say this, but Bray is the best character guy they've got right now. His promo work and every Funhouse is always just stellar. All we need now is for him to avenge this horrible Saudi loss, which he shouldn't have had to go through in the first place because it wasn't the right time to put the belt on him, but it's all done now. But he can hopefully avenge this horrible Saudi Arabia loss by beating Cena cleanly and sending him away, because I think Cena, by the sounds of his speech last week, he's going to go away to Hollywood for a while, so just fingers crossed Bray just wipes him out, that's it. And then we don't see Cena again for a few years, but I just don't know anymore. We then go backstage. Baron Corbin is being interviewed, and he starts by saying that him and Roman's done, that feud's dead, it's all finished. He's then cut off by Elias, and Elias is like playing guitar. Corbin can't quite believe it, and he tells him, you know, everything is in your head, you're not a rock star, you're not anything important. If you keep behaving like this, you're gonna have to answer to your king. Following this, we go to another backstage segment, and it's Otis, it's Heavy Machinery, and Otis is walking down down a corridor while Tucker's like, whoa, no. I thought we talked about this last week. Otis is approaching Mandy. He apologizes. He said that he did receive. He's got his phone in his hand. He's about to show her. He's like, I did receive messages from you saying that you were going to be running late. And she says to him, look, Otis, it's too late. I'm sorry. Like, a woman doesn't appreciate being stood up. And she just walks off. Otis just looks a bit confused. A little bit heartbroken, but a little bit confused. Just bless his little perfect soul. I just want to invite him round and like give him the good controller, and we'll sit and play PS4 all day, and I'll make sure he has all the pop and crisps and ham that he could ever want. Just come over, mate, come on. And then we go to tonight's main event, and this is going to be a mouthful. It is a gauntlet match to decide the final entrance in the Elimination Chamber match this Sunday for the SmackDown tag titles. I think I got all the details in there, and it includes, it includes the following teams. I'm gonna have to read these. New Day, Heavy Machinery, Ziggler and Roode, Lucha House Party, Usos, and Miz and Morrison. Hey, hey, ho, ho. We kick things off with New Day versus Heavy Machinery, and Tucky and Kofi start things off. Kofi holds his ground against the much bigger guy, and then Big E gets in, points at Otis, he wants Otis. So Otis gets in, and then we enter the big sweaty meat-slapping meat section of the match. Heavy Machinery hit double delayed vertical suplexes, and then we get some nice back and forth between the teams. There's also some entertaining moments like, you know, when Big E throws Kofi over the top rope for the dive, like Tucky just catches him into a suplex position and just launches him onto the ramp. And that moment actually leads to Heavy Machinery hitting the compactor on Big E and picking up the win. So next up we have Heavy Machinery, who are still very much in the game, against Lucha House Party, who are represented this week by Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik. Lucha House Party start fast, but Heavy Machinery have the clear power advantage. Metalik gets in, and much of the same continues. Otis just makes them bump for their suppers, basically. There's a stereo dive, but it does little to stop the onslaught. Tucky gets rocked, Otis gets in, Otis survives a stunner. There's a little bit more back and forth, and then Otis hits the Caterpillar to pick up the win, so Heavy Machinery roll on, and next it's Heavy Machinery versus the Usos. So the Usos take Tucky straight to the floor. Tucky is gassed by this point. He's just dying. He's been fighting for his life, fighting to get his team the best possible position in this match. He is knackered, so they're just tearing his arms apart. They do a really good job of keeping him isolated and away from Otis. There's then a super kick to put Tucky out of his misery, and when they go for the pin, Tucky just adjusts his body, rolls him onto his shoulders, and somehow gets the 3. So Heavy Machinery roll on, and now it's Heavy Machinery versus Miz and Morrison. Miz gets in, isolates Tucky straight away. Great tag team dynamic here. They're tagging regularly to keep him sort of guessing who the legal man is, because Tucky's eyes are just rolling in his head right now. He doesn't know where he is. After eating all of the abuse that he physically can, he finally gets a break in the action. He's crawling over to Otis, and his hand just falls through the air as Otis has pulled off the apron. Eventually, they look like they're going to put Tucky out of his misery, but Otis gets in, breaks up the pin. There's then a little bit of confusion and breakdown, which allows Tucker to get a cheeky roll up, and Heavy Machinery have made it to the final stage of the gauntlet match, except Miz and Morrison didn't like this very much, and they beat them down. They send Otis into the timekeeper's area, you know, through that breakaway piece of like barrier, and Tucky just gets stamped into the mat like he may as well be a pancake at this point. But anyway, it rolls on, and it's that bellend, that absolute bellend, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. When we come back from the break, Roode is just choking Tucky out with a headlock. Like, Tucky is so done now, he can barely stand. He's been fighting and fighting and fighting, and they're just taking full advantage of this. Ziggler's getting in and going like, I'll try a drop kick, and like going for a pin after a drop kick and getting a very near 3 count. It gets to a point though where Tucky just keeps kicking out of things, so they start double teaming him. They're just grinding him right down into mincemeat, and then the crowd goes ape. The crowd, it's like an 80s style pop. Like, it's just, all that happened is off camera as well. Otis sat up or stood up and started to get back to his feet. The crowd, it just gets louder. As he gets closer and closer to that corner, it gets louder. So after everything, Tucky finally gets to the corner, gets the hot tag to Otis, and the crowd explode. Otis gets in, and just like Roode is going for him, and he's absorbing every little thing that's being thrown at him. However, when he has the Caterpillar ready to go, Dolph makes a sneaky tag. Otis isn't quite sure what's going on. Super kick to the face. Dolph Ziggler pins him. for the 3. That absolute bellend. Why can't Otis have nice things? Despite the victory, I'm still going to give this match an A. Anybody that was even on the fence about Heavy Machinery or didn't like them, that is an impossibility after you watch this match. They fight so hard. This was like a masterclass in getting an entire audience behind one team. They just took so much abuse and they're just the purest of heart. Like, it's just a classic sort of tale of good versus bad with it. It was great right at the end. It was so good. This, of course, also helps further the storyline between Otis and Dolph because Dolph has just leveled him and put him away. There was actually a point during the gauntlet match, by the way, I think it's just before Ziggler comes out, Mandy is watching on at gorilla position. She's watching on through the monitor by the curtain, and Ziggler's just like, oh, don't worry about that guy. It's like a shot of Otis who's just dead. And she's like, don't worry about that guy. What are you worrying about him for? And then he walks out. So the seeds are being planted, and hopefully at Mania we're going to have our Macho Man Miss Elizabeth moment. I really want that so much. Overall this week, I'm going to give SmackDown a B-. Now, it probably would have only got a C, maybe a C- even, if it wasn't for Firefly Funhouse and that last match. That last match was everything. It was beautiful. And it's worked as well. They've actually got me pretty excited for Elimination Chamber, which before I sat down and watched this week's SmackDown, I was just a bit like, like a little bit indifferent about it. It's always a fun show, but like, you know, But what did you think of SmackDown this week? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Graded.